Do you ever think to yourself, what would have happened if I hadn't been at that specific place in that specific time, if I hadn't met that person or seen the things I saw that day? Well, I sure have, and I think you have too. In the spring of 2011, I was traveling around Asia, New Zealand, and Australia with my two best friends. You know, this standard trip us Swedes do to try to figure out what we want to do with our lives. But you end up coming home broke and without a strategic plan, but with a ton of irreplaceable and everlasting memories. Our plan was to work in Australia for a few months, but all that failed when some unexpected tax money rolled into our accounts. Instead, we simply just decided to enjoy ourselves and to explore. Except for a few long days working in a chocolate factory, we didn't really do too much. One night we decided to go to the local bar. It was just nearby our apartment in Melbourne. That night is when everything changed. That was the night I met that one person that would turn my whole life around. Of course, I didn't know that then. Our first meeting was short and sweet, but still made a really big impression on me, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. The next day, we met again. And from this point on, nothing would be the same. Being from two opposite sides of the world, we of course realized it's a bit tricky to make a relationship work. But we still tried to see each other as much as possible when traveling and when on the same continent, of course. In the fall of 2012, we just said enough is enough, and we made a huge decision, which would change our lives forever. He moved over to Sweden, to all the polar bears and the Viking villages, and of course, he moved over to be with me. Romantic stories like these only existed in movies for me, up until this point. Don't get me wrong, going from not seeing each other at all to living together in a tiny apartment is not always a walk in the park, and there have been quite a few challenges. But I wouldn't trade it for anything, and I'm so incredibly happy and proud of this life-changing decision. This experience has taught me that sometimes you need to take risks in life. Sometimes you just need to make a decision that can seem big or scary at the time. Otherwise, you'll never know. So if you're ever thinking, should I? Could I? Is it realistic? Just stop thinking and do it anyway. Because sitting around wondering what could have happened is not a great way to spend your time at all. Do it and see what happens. Especially when it comes to love. Because when you meet that special someone, it's probably best to hold on real tight. They don't come along that often, you see.